Thank you, everyone, for joining me. This is another edition of the 9 o'clock Meltdown. I'm your host, Crystal. I also have a wonderful PR host, public radio host, not public relations, although you could call it that too. Robin Washington in the studio with me. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes,
you did invite me. I didn't just wander in here, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I did invite you. You didn't wander in off the street. I didn't interrupt you from your bike ride.
Great. Okay, thank you. Well,
That's fine. And then over the phone, I have the wonderful Duluth poets, Craig and Christina. And now, Christina, you've been published in multiple articles, online articles, and things like that. How did your poetry start?
Well, I was about 7 years old, and I realized I had the calling to do so when I wrote a poem when I was 7, and it was a poem about Santa Claus, and it goes, at Santa's house, you freeze and freeze at Santa's house, what a tease, lots of toys and ice cream snow and gingerbread in a row, and my dad thought that was absolutely wonderful, and everyone was, so I kind of was inspired partially, I knew I was doing well at it at the age of 7, and my dad was very encouraging of my career in that capacity.
Mm-hmm. All right, wonderful. And now you've been published, like I said, multiple times in different articles and things like that. How do you get kind of that publisher underneath your belt? Do you have to submit things? Are they competitions?
Submitting. I guess I get leads from other poets. Mm-hmm. Sometimes someone will see my work and ask me to submit. But basically, I just look for, I belong to multiple poetry sites on Facebook, and that's been very helpful as far as finding leads.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now, Craig, you had actually reached out to us first, Christina, before you did, and you are a short storyteller and a poet as well.
Yes, I just have one haiku today because this is about Christina. Mostly, and her new book coming out.
Craig is my agent. He's my professional agent. He's facilitating, because I'm writing my 4th book right now. Craig is helping me to facilitate not my promulgation, but the promotion of my book, which I hope to publish because I've written 3 books. I started off with a book called Xanthic Blondes, then a comedy, Sexual Idiots, and a fantasy poetry book, all of which are not published, but I am currently working on my 4th book, and I have an illustrator and a publisher in mind who I'm communicating with, so we're really excited about that.
Right.
If I can jump in here, it's Christina Maki, is it not?
That's right.
M-A-K-I.
M-A-K, one of the famous Makis in the Twin Ports area?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, sure, why not, right? All the Makis are famous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean pill and finish.
Right. Well, so that segues into one of the competitions that you've been involved in is the Finnish North American Poetry Competition.
That's my biggest one.
Yeah.
I won for the FinFest 100 Writer Award, and I won, and I was allowed to, or I was put in the Hilton, and we stayed on the top floor. It was very nice, and I got to read my poetry.
Wait, the Hilton there's no Hilton in Duluth, so... In Minneapolis. Oh, okay, because I was thinking of maybe in Finland.
Hey, they could have one in Finland.
You got invited?
For a while. But the real joy was that we are grateful and honored to have anyone listen to our message. And she was honored for Finland's 100, for 100 years of sovereignty as a country, and deemed as 2017's North American Writer of the Year.
Very cool.
And just like Christina with the famous Maki family, you must be part of the famous Wills family in Duluth, or Superior, perhaps.
I don't know that. I've heard Bob Wills bubbles in my beer, and that's about it. So he's with the Texas Playboys and long gone.
There we go. Actually, seriously, I can't think of too many other Wills. So we're going to be humbled to be talking to the most famous Wills right here on KUWS.
Yes, exactly. On the 9 o'clock Meltdown. Shameless plug either way, right?
That's right.
And now, Craig, what are you hoping to do with this website? It kind of sounds like you want to facilitate some managerial experience, or are you hoping to become other people's kind of voice behind the business side of things in art?
Well, everyone has their own voice, and I've felt that people with original content are where it's at, and investing in people. So everyone keeps their profits. They can take care of themselves as they create and inspire others, and it doesn't have to be,
He's more practical than I am. I tend to be very esoteric, thinking of deep things and stumbling through the kitchen, and he is more of, he's definitely more of a business-oriented person, and I'm more of like the creative, but he is an excellent writer. But I'm more of the creative spirit, and he has more practical knowledge, and I feel comfortable with him as my agent.
Right.
Can we hear that excellent haiku? I know it's got to be excellent, right? Since
It is.
Well,
It was written by a Wills.
right,
I'm
the
pretty
famous one.
Exactly.
Okay, it is entitled Sirius's Light, Robots of God, Disinherited Heart.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I have never been good at writing haikus at all. That's why I write prose poetry, and I don't care if it rhymes or not. I'm just kind of like, ugh, here's an emotion, here's a feeling, here's a scene.
Right. I've been trying to get back with more of the rhyme, incorporating alliteration, consonants, those sorts of things without sounding too,
Sing-songy.
poetry or cheesy. I want to make it sound, but I've been trying to get back to a little more rhyme, and that's been quite a challenge. But you always have to push yourself as a poet and grow. So that's what I'm trying to do at this point, is incorporate some of those more primitive styles such as rhyme and put them back in to a more advanced type of poetry.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And now, Christina, when I've heard your work in the past, you've done quite a few readings around town. You've done the homegrown poetry reading multiple years, and then you've done other places as well. It's very vernacular. You pull a lot of Old English into it, and you tend to speak about feminism and powerful women throughout history. Your more recent works were with Ophelia, and I also know you've written about Hecate as well.
Or as I say, Hecate. So which is it? Because
Yes,
I've been carrying
which is it?
Hecate in my head for way too many decades.
I've carried Hecate.
I study a lot.
What's that?
I study a lot. I don't recall mentioning Hecate, but
Whatever they call her, whatever she calls herself.
I like to consider myself a history buff. I like ancient Rome quite a bit. I see parallels with the fall of the Republic, and I see what's going on now, and also just the general demise of the empire. I'm interested in ancient Greek history. I study quite a bit, and I go over English vocabulary regularly, ancient words with Latin roots as well as Anglo-Saxon words, and try to increase my vocabulary. I have no problem using out-of-date or archaic words.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and incorporating that into your poetry and your short stories, it turns out very beautifully. I think I remember the first time I saw you read, it was at a homegrown poetry showcase at the Duluth Underground, and you read a very beautiful poem.
I've written, I write a lot, so I'm not sure what the poetry I read, 3 or 4 years ago.
Is any of that recorded?
I don't know.
Yes, we have a SoundCloud account, which we've recorded some rather novice music, but the poetry is solid.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. So then you do overlay some music with your poetry then?
For fun, on GarageBand, we'll do some looping and sound effects. Yeah, we have a few things on SoundCloud, I believe. That's nothing I've really pursued, but I do enjoy mixing it up with some sound effects and some background music or looping. It's just kind of fun, but it's nothing I've pursued really. I'm focused on the books right now. So.
Okay. If someone's interested in listening to some of your poetry on SoundCloud, and we'll play some after this as well, what's your handle?
It's available at Poet at Christina the Author. That's capital P, capital C, capital C, capital A. And that's on Facebook.
So, you can follow me on Facebook and at my poet at Christina the Author. That is where you can see my reading from the finale from the Fin Fest Award. I have those poems that are recorded, and I did those live in Minneapolis last year, or 11 months ago, or whatever, and it was pretty fun. got to meet the First Lady of Finland.
Jenny Haukio,
Yep.
who's also a poet.
She's also a poet and has her own chapbook out, and it was saw the Finnish president, and it was quite great. It was really an honor.
You're listening to the 9 o'clock Meltdown here on 91.3 KUWS right here in Superior. So did you submit for a contest to meet the First Lady of Finland?
Yeah, it was a contest through the Finnish North American Literature Association.
Christina, I didn't know that the First Lady of Finland was a poet.
Yes, she's quite a good poet. She writes about the natural world and the incursion of elements upon the environment.
Okay.
She was very inspirational. I was there with other poets.
Could we hear something from you?
Yes,
Christina?
of course. I was just about to jump into that.
And it could be a little bit longer than haiku if you like. There's a tanka, which is the 7-line Japanese poem, but you can go longer than that, too.
And if no one knew, Robin Washington is also a poet himself, so he's quite a bit more well-spoken than I am.
I tend to be I'm better at poetry than I am speaking live on the radio, and I feel comfortable with, just relaying my words through the spoken word and through writing. Mm-hmm. So I'd be happy to read some of my poems to you guys.
By all means.
Of course.
I've prepared some 5 poems, and I don't know how much time we have, but I'll be happy to read one of them for you if you'd like right now.
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
Okay. It's called 6 Months in the Mind of a Madman. In 6 months' time, I have seen the waxing, waning, gibbous, engorged lunacy hung in counterpoise, contrapposto position, and Orion. Please stand still on the carpet, sit down, watch TV, or have a beer. Don't hang out in the canopy of our lives, or either as a ghost hanging dead in a mental hospital, swept with the veil with 6 months of bedlam before bloody hands ripped down my specter-searching, ripping, dripping stone Bastille. The saxicoline creatures crawled or beat their unfeathered black flea wings. They have been defrocked by way of defenestration and bellow a klaxon of sanity to rule us with this inhumane noise. He, too, has held me there with Russian now. He, too, held up shame through his own anima proud. He has disabused me of men. I hear the footsteps of the chief. They are light, yet abrupt. Like most paradoxes are the color gray. Only there is great fear and anger in my chest and you. It is only in retrospect of the untrammeled gardens of your vibrating skull that left me drenched in bloody gates of barbed wire. Don't talk to me of insanity, for I have spent 6 months in the prison of a madman's mind.
Christina, I love your use of words and vocabulary and things like that. People tend to not write like that anymore. Was that something that you tried to reach back and kind of learn from the older poets writing that way? Or was it just kind of...
It's not the older poets so much. It's like I'm really into the historical and Shakespeare. Oh, my God. I love Shakespeare. And I like to use like things like anon, alack, or whatever, in case, but I think it's more from a historical understanding of who I am. I want to know who I am completely. Mm-hmm. And I want to complete my mission in life of understanding myself. No one can be the genius of you but you. So I know that through my writing, I am attaining what I am called to do.
Mm-hmm. And now, Christina, you are on your 4th book, your 4th poetry book.
Right.
Let's jump back a little bit to kind of that first book that you had put out. Was that a huge honor? Was it a competition? Was it a collaboration between you and other poets? How did that feel, and how did that come about?
Well, I submitted it, and it didn't get past the readers. But I then submitted it directly to the editor. Mm-hmm. I'm working with now, and she said she'd like to read my work directly on the next book, instead of getting, the readers stopping the process. So I need to get this book out. I have an illustrator. We're working collaboratively, somewhat organically, trying to compile a book with illustrations that really, I feel we both, the illustrator and myself, the illustrator Emily Yegman and I, both have a certain je ne sais quoi. And I feel that that is something that really needs to be expressed. I mean, I have a certain degree of ADHD, but those are not hindrances to me. That instead is my greatest strength.
Mm-hmm.
You can always draw on your greatest weaknesses to be your greatest strength.
Mm-hmm.
And that drives me and compels me forward. And I don't see it as a hindrance, rather as a gift, social evolution. It's an advancement. I don't see it negatively.
Okay. Do you rely on kind of the way your brain functions to write your poetry to kind of get that flow, or at sometimes it's kind of a start and stop? It's got a little jagged beat to it.
Yeah, jagged. That's the question I like, because I like it to I like it a little jagged. You know, as Leonard Cohen says, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. If it wasn't jagged, you know, if it was any better, it wouldn't be as good.
And, you know, according to
no, I'm just kidding.
according to a Autochthonous people of North America, you know, you should have one mistake or one flaw in your work.
And I know it. Yeah, it does have a jagged quality, but I liked that, and I have a rhymer too, which I'm prepared to read too, so that you guys can have, like, it's more fun and it's not as jagged. But yeah, I like the jagged part.
Well, the jaggedness, as I think you're saying, I noticed a bit of, we're going to go into poetry speak here for a minute. I actually have a copy of the Encyclopedia of Poetry and Poetics that some relatives gave me on my 16th birthday to encourage me to do all this stuff. So consonants, which is repeating consonants sounds, you had an awful lot of C's in a row there, I noticed, or K's, or cacophony, if you will. Right. But you spoke of more formal techniques that you've been thinking about adopting.
Oh, yeah. I write Villanelle sonnets, in which case it doesn't come off as jagged because you have to stick to iambic pentameter.
Well, you have to stick to some sort of metrical device.
Right.
We can be liberal enough and not be iambic pentameter. But I like to say, by the way, actually teach this, anybody who might want to listen, that iambic pentameter works well for Shakespeare because that was the language of Elizabethan English. Right. And today we don't normally speak in iambs until we get a rhythm that we like. And notice I just did that on purpose. Until we get a rhythm that we like. So I just looked up a poem.
Hexameter, just like the Virgil and the ancient poets, you know, that would be so fun. But I mean, who writes in dactylic hexameter?
Who indeed, yes. Although Sylvia Plath did write in dactylic trimeter, but we won't go there.
No, I have to look that up. Yeah,
I'd have to look that up too.
Frankly, she did do something that I stole, and that you're welcome to steal too. Speaking of what you were saying about rhyme, is she'd have free verse going on and on and on, and then all of a sudden would introduce a metrical couplet or triplet, such as, "It is love you are full of, you know who you hate. He is hugging his ball and chain down by the gate that opens to the sea where it spews out white and black, then takes it back."
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Right. Or, even better, "I should sit on a rock off Cornwall and comb my hair. I should wear tiger pants. I should have an affair. We should meet in another life. We should meet in air. Me and you." And then the next line is, "Meanwhile, there's the smell of fat and baby fat in the kitchen." So you see how she mixed this.
Laundry and kitchen references. So sweet.
Right.
You're listening to the 9 o'clock Meltdown here on 91.3 KUWS right here in Superior.
Well, how about another sonnet on perhaps a different subject?
Oh, you want me to do a sonnet?
We can't get more formal than that, can we? Yep.
Oh, my God. I need to prepare a sonnet. I don't know if I can find one right now. I can do, I have other poems that Stone White Lions. I could do that. I Care Less About You, Sadly. A rhymer, which is really fun, Volpes, and Women of America.
You know, it almost sounds like we're taking categories in Jeopardy. I'll take rhymer for 500.
Okay, rhymer. Here we go. It's called Volpes Volpes. It's about, it deals with the red fox, ostensibly. Her name is red redounding in the tomb of a queen, the screams echo bounding. Behind the taps her upright glance awaiting with a $20 greenback for the wasting in a festival of craft beer tasting. The vorpal stiletto in her brain searing Maki there to trade. Renee Descartes maimed and lain on the bloody bar in vain. She ambulates a bit too late, a younger woman taken up her place. And alas, she is not apace. Delaying of the story of her name is hastening, lest I forget the Eritrean times debasing. So like Volpes, Volpes, dressed in red, she knows all, that burgeoning personhood is all but dead, yet she is red like the fox. Surfeit of plea, I am bound to thee. You are lucky the umbilical cord is cut from me, because my name is red too, redounding in the tomb of a queen. The screams echo bounding, then our names conflating, wild and free, dime bomb erasing from our pacing, for a rodent gone a-blazing, as the winter months keep chasing, and the implications of our names are racing, in a grand seamstress's tight lacing. So like Volpes, Volpes, comparisons in red, I know that burgeoning personhood is all but dead, yet we are red as a fox.
Fantastic.
Thank
So, is this slamming poetry or reading poetry, or is there a difference, or should there be one?
Maybe it's a
think
hybrid.
that was more of a slam poem, and I really write whatever comes out. I'm a unique poet. I know that, and it's kind of in between because I didn't make it as a slam poem. I just wanted to. My illustrator had given me a picture of a fox that she drew, and she really has this je ne sais quoi that I love. And so I said, I'm going to write a poem for your illustration so we can start working organically. And that was just written the other day, yesterday or the day before.
Fresh off the, whatever it is that poetry comes off of, right?
Yeah, fresh off the wheel.
Yeah, fresh off the wheel. I don't know about publishing that one, but it's certainly fun to read.
Oh, yes. I enjoyed the flow and kind of the start-stop motion that it had it right in the middle there, but then it like caught up with itself again and then just kind of hit it out on a high note.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty fun, I enjoy it, and I think the public likes to hear the rhyming poems sometimes because, it's just fun.
Yes, excellent. So, Christina, I will take women for 4.
Okay, women of America. We women stand on the ship's wooden deck to watch a rubicund glow, illuminating the standard of time. We see it, the flag, the clock, the grandfather clocks like my dad used to make, chiming off the hours every 15 minutes when a fusillade illuminates the stars and stripes. Stars do not oppress me. It is the tradition of Abraham, Isaac, Ishmael, Jacob, Joseph. I am certainly the woman that is banned from foreign nations for being there without a job during the Republic, during the reign of George W. The gendered tongue was feminine in French even before the revolution spread out. Wet tears across a cloud land with blazing stripes of red and white as our stars grow yawning before Eos or another deity of dawn.
Wonderful. Christina Maki and Craig Wills, along with Robin Washington in the studio with me. I'm your host, Crystal. This is another edition of the 9 o'clock Meltdown here on 91.3 KUWS, right here in Superior. Christina, your poetry is so lush and vibrant, and we were talking earlier, and you pull in a lot of kind of old school vernacular and things like that because you like to educate yourself. Craig, you're more on the business side of things. You're Christina's manager. Also, you are her partner as well, if I can just rope that in a little bit. Now, you guys have recently launched a website, and you're kind of looking at helping artists with that business side of things, but allowing them that creative freedom and allowing them to kind of keep what they reap, what they sow, the profits.
Absolutely, because I think too often people will, as you said, Robin, steal techniques or even words, and this is a livelihood for people, so they really need the remuneration for their work. And writing is work. It requires countless hours, and
it's a fun job, but it's
a job.
To quote the infamous Cypress Hill, or it's fun, but it is work. Obviously you guys know that.
I'm interested to hear, Craig and Christina, your thoughts on this. Robin, before we had launched into the interview, we were discussing poetry and things like that. And you came up with this question on your bike. Didn't tell me how long ago it was, but is the internet ruining poetry?
And by that, I mean, where could they possibly be going with this, right? That's what you're wondering. And by that, I mean that a lot of poetry is, and is supposed to be, the poets or the artists' speculation or wondering or inquisitiveness about the world. So you see things around you, as, yes, you pointed out on my bike ride. I see all kinds of stuff, and I think, I wonder what that is, and I wonder what happened there, and I wonder, and those wonderings become poems. But now with the internet, guess what? We have the answer to everything. There's nothing to wonder about anymore. There was a famous poem, so famous I can't remember the name anymore, but I could look it up, right?
I don't think that question's been answered yet.
What's that?
If God rolls the dice.
Right. So the example I want to give, and then hear your take on it, is there was a poem once. I'm sure I could find out what this poem was in about 30 seconds, if that long, on my device. But of some railroad bridge, and somebody had written a name up on top, Billy loves Sally or something like that. And some poet came along, saw it, and wrote a wonderful ode speculating about Billy and Sally and what happened. Well, guess what? Today we could find out what happened in about 15 seconds. So that's what I'm asking. Is the age of poetic speculation gone? Has the internet killed it?
Oh, no, not for me. If anything, it's opened it up.
It's opened it up. There's a whole world that's almost ungraspable. And it's very interesting to see how the internet, to write a poem about the internet and your interactions on it is a challenge. And one that I've been working on, because just writing about the internet and our communication and our sense of humanity.
And the immediacy of the audience, and that they can choose for themselves.
That's right. Mm-hmm. They'll tweet right back to you what they don't like about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, absolutely. And we love to hear people.
That's what we want. And I used to belong to a group that got me really started back in the day, which was started by Luke Prater out of England. And it was where all the poetry people from the original Facebook poetry site, if you recall back in the day, there was like a middle finger up and it said poetry. 2010, and like every poet on the internet was on this site. Well, then Luke Prater started a group called Facial Expressions Poetry Circle, I think it was, and we began to critique each other. Mm-hmm. And it was a group of more talented poets that could get on there and say, like, no, this is not good, or you need to change this, or this is really they will really be hard on you, and I like that.
It's instant peer review.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to take devil's advocate to this. I think the internet it makes people too harsh because they can hide behind a keyboard. So if someone doesn't like your work, they can spit all the things that they don't like about it, but you don't necessarily get people that say positive things about your work.
On the one hand, yes, you could have accomplished poets or writers weigh in on something and tell you, you have iambic pentameter, or whatever. It should. I would suggest that you do anapestic tetrameter. That, by the way, was what Sylvia Plath was doing with her couplets. But I actually experienced this. So I wrote a sonnet on deadline for the News Tribune editorial page once.
Can we hear it?
Well, I'll give you the first line because I can't quite remember it right now, and perhaps I'll challenge myself to find it and add it to this program. But it was a sonnet about a sonnet for Minnesota. If you go back to the guy who was, you remember this? Tim Pawlenty, when he was governor.
That sounds so fun.
Yes. And so when Pawlenty was governor, he had vetoed something about a state poet, and we editorialized against it in the form of a sonnet. And the first line was something like, in Minnesota more than anywhere. I actually found a site that was sonnets.com or sonnets.org or something like that. And it was a group of people who wrote sonnets, and they critiqued each other. Somebody critiqued mine and wrote back, it shouldn't be more than anywhere because logically speaking, Minnesota is somewhere. So this person said it should be in Minnesota more than anywhere, and somehow he got the word else in there on the next line and preserved the rhyme scheme.
Very
I
cool.
actually didn't appreciate that.
Oh,
Well,
I liked, even though mine was technically wrong, I liked it.
That are going to be envious of your accomplishments, but it's up to you to be a leader and lead by example. So don't be dissuaded. In fact, in Duluth, if someone's giving you a hard time verbally, you're doing something right.
Well, this guy was around the world somewhere, but I'll take
Even
that.
better.
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So, Christina, when is your book going to hit the shelves?
Well, I'm waiting to talk to the publisher, and I was supposed to get it in by this November, but I want it to be illustrated because I think that is going to be
Perhaps next fall. Tentatively.
I'm trying, we're working on it, but I need to get back with the editor-in-chief that I'm talking to about this and let her know it's not going to be in this November because I want it to be illustrated.
Mm-hmm. All right. Excellent. And do you find that illustrations help bring out your poetry a little bit more?
Sometimes I'll use illustrations. It depends, I try to be original. I try not to. The Volpes is about an illustration, and the Red Fox.
And I noticed that Christina does something smart. She refers to the five senses and describes
Which Sheila
Packer passed on.
She said, always use the senses. Try to use all the senses in your poem. And because we went to her seminar.
Yeah.
And I find that not always using every sense, but trying to get like one or two in there is good. And I learned that from Sheila Packer.
Hey.
And what I also learned is ground the poem, like with laundry, the kitchen, any kind of practicality that can sink the poem into the edaphic earth. You want it to be earthy and be able to feel the grounding.
And real, right. I have a whole series of laundry poems, by the way, but we'll pass on those for the moment.
Oh, Robin, you can't air out your dirty laundry on radio.
Where else would I?
Either, yeah.
All right. Well, Craig, Christina, thank you so much for joining me by phone and sharing your poetry, sharing your thoughts. Yes, thank you. And good luck with the website, Craig. Christina, good luck with your book. I hope it hits the shelf soon.
Yeah, me too. It's in progress, so I would love for people to, and the tentative title of it is He Battles for the Afterlife, but that's going to change.
Robin, thank you so much for stopping in the studio this afternoon and sharing your time with us.
As well as my dirty laundry. Thank you.
As well as your
It's been
dirty
great
laundry.
being here. Thanks, Craig and Christina.
Thank you.
Robin.
It's interesting when people give us dirty laundry.
Maki. She's the winner of the first prize in the 2017 Kippis Writing Contest and the Finland 100 FinFest Writer Award. Kippis, the publication of the Finnish North American Literature Association, awarded her for her poems entitled Minnesota Wildfires, The Lady of the Lake, The Train Station in Windsor, Making Psychosis Look Easy, and My Old French Teacher Was a Hologram. I'm really proud to introduce Christina.
Okay, hi everybody. I have chosen to read those poems that were published by Kippis for my first place win, and then some additional poetry that I thought you guys might enjoy because it rhymes maybe more. But the first one I'd like to start off with is The Sacrifice of Minnesota Wildflowers. Okay. Where the old wooden house had stood, I picked wildflowers in northern Minnesota. They needed little arrangement, Mother Nature. The grass-shifting carpet rolled out with bright stretching forest of hard yellow, under western breeze and trepid smell of life from birch, beech, spruce, pine, the earth receding from the last civilized outpost, and we knew it too. Even the Lilliputian forest, and it was gone. When I had earlier looked into the sauna mirror, tipped my hat to imagery, my hand outstretched for the last carriage of my youth at 12, yawning still from 30 years ago, this place is gone. Whispers from centuries of treks, dancers of the dead, and now I must be dead. But daisies for daisy chains are propitious matchmakers, caught in that moment of memory melancholy. The cornflower, skylorn, little flowers percolate in the wheaten grass. The Indian paintbrushes refuse to die no matter they look to the sun, their spade of hurried orange rushing for the most beautiful rictus, root-severed stems behind a glass cage of death. That was Sacrifice of Minnesota Wildflowers. The next one is The Lady of the Lake. And this is poetry that's based on my experiences with people, my family, some various people. And this one kind of has to deal with some deaths that I've experienced in my family. You left your sympathy, child of the bereft, back in 80, with your eyes under a blanket and a lisp. I tried to befriend you in the morning with the sun-bathed vermilion velvet smell cast upon the floor, dust in the air, a teenage red-haired girl unpacking a verdure-patterned forest green suitcase prior to our aunt's funeral. I watched out as she flushed out flowing fuchsia-flowered scarves and a sillage of oak, which is potent to a 4-year-old. Also, a long, fuliginous espial hand of sleep weft like the tendency to forget, sweet water wheels dripping cold and clean. And the younger people danced across the roller coaster of your face. I found you toothed and rabid with tentacles clinging to the sweet shadow of youth. In alpastrine paranoia of self-reflection, you knew you were the lone peak that defied you, the lone peak that deified. I am also categorized by such tempestuous gods. You must have known, down from the northern penumbra of the sun did the final blow follow in terms of roundabout isolation. The train station in Windsor. And I had a boyfriend in Quebec City, so I was going to that train station quite a bit at that time. Okay, the train station in Windsor. I was about to go. Trails of hot coconut oil, hot sandal sidewalk, and no sign of people. I wore thick, dark braids. We'd spent summer camp with a burgeoning sense of identity. In tanning lotion to the beach as a teenager, I'd outgrown you by then. When I saw you at the train station in Windsor. Neon girl clubs dancing with the burning devil, I stayed up all night. I saw nothing but irrefragable, obstreperous, clothed in verse-stringed instruments bleeding for the attentions of a man. I was alone again. I missed your innocence, dipping into my coral reef with fingers of moral turpentine and my brain making treacly vibrations run amok for the next synapse, primeval science elapsing in waves, alligerous, burnt-down witches, in cartoonesque hallucinations, cracked porcelain masked dolls claiming the phosphorescent fish from some great undersea ocean. You come whistling back in through the back door. Justice is broken by palisaded pathways where crimes against the heart become resentment and unspoken vehicles of cruelty. Life is too short. Keep whistling. Okay, making psychosis look easy, which is not hard. Okay, here we go. You are standing in line. The day is hot as steel. People proselytizing for a foot of my space make small talk in a small town. You're in a bleached straitjacket with wicker baskets by the bulrushes, accidentally with gaping rubber scraping up against your innards. How are you, Mr. Davids? You are the curse on the house of David. You are the formidable army of Scipio Africanus, and then the ultimate defeat of Carthage. Hunkering with change to buy a pop by the candy bars while humanity crosses paths with the weather. Once again, there's been a storm. It's cleared. Fresh air, and that was something. The breath of conformity is a byword, and yet its contagion blows through the fresh air. The cashier communicates me with deep chestnut eyes, a steel chain anchoring between us. I lost you in the battlefield, but I cannot help think of Moses lost in the Trojan War. My old French teacher was a hologram. My old French teacher was a frizzy blonde hologram tracing information across her capacious scoop neck to her loins in chalk. Mrs. Cartwright, in black carusating pleather pants scraping against a 55-year-old Callipygian gravitational derriere, she taught me about infinitives, the present tense. In the beginning was the word and the rest was the oxidant. Later at my desk, surrounded by my ivy leaves, blue ballpoint pens, and a tablet, I sat athwart from the fire and glanced into its flickering tongue and saw fractals and magic. But despite this, I sat on a precipice. I could feel the earth glow. I could see it. I could feel her rotations and her numbers tantivy and being reeled by her gravity. But if infinity exists, my French teacher was a hologram. Okay, now I got a rhymer, a few. One that I wrote for my friend Jen, who is here in the audience, right there. And it applies to other people too, but let me find it here just a second. It's under poems, I think. Okay, here we go. No ballroom gown. And this is about people that have a very strong prefrontal cortex, which I do not, and I'm jealous of it. But also, it's about, you'll see. No ballroom gown. Do I envy your brain with steel aloud, colored chestnut expression left mortals reciting cadence to no ballroom gown, drowning frowns she trends with her group around, the fire is bright orange with sweeping coral? Do I envy your brain with steel aloud? Time falls and leaves cement breaking your shroud, then it's cast and quickly springing floral, reciting cadence to no ballroom gown. And to the sacred burial we vowed together to dress in our best morals. Do I envy your brain with steel aloud? Cerulean oracle in the crowd, divine feminine, black dress, sartorial, reciting cadence to no ballroom gown. You are dawn, noon, night, atmospheric sound, atop youth, writhing blasphemous curls. Do I envy your brain with steel aloud, reciting cadence to no ballroom gown? And then I wanted to read like one more here from, I've written 2 books, but I haven't published them yet, and I'm working on that. But let me find one from the book that I wrote called Sexual Idiots. If I can find it, notes. Oh, yes. So this story is about a woman, you'll see, she discovers her husband has a problem, and she seeks revenge. Meanwhile, everyone is aging. So it's a comedy book. This is called Sam Goes Too Far. And they're camping now. This is a book that I wrote, and they're camping, and she comes back from the Biffy or whatever. And then, footsteps precipitously placed like Sun Tzu over a swamp, I caught him fully enraptured with his face to the bosky foliage with a young blonde and Asian girl in their early 20s getting spanked on chairs. I was robustly jealous. This was not the first time he had looked at pornography with girls half my age bent over chairs, a bed, a couch, the floor, the beach, a hot tub. I hate to be struck on the behind, so over-dramatizing the irony of the situation, I upped the ante. He also watched The Bachelor with me. I made a resolution to have an affair. It was a singular goal at first. I mean, the one affair. Making a muse. These are not published by Keepies. These are just things that I wrote. Making a muse. My muses have fallen off trucks in the night. Although I object to their being bought in corrugated cardboard boxes with packing tape and masks, seen as owned property. Idolization is more term for Venus de Milo or Michelangelo's David. I was raised right out of the Reformation, so smashing idols, the watch at sky, electric blue man, and plain clothes makes a knick-knack god of olive oil in Greece or Anatolia and a prophet of Plato. For years, the seconds tick by in 2017. Making a muse. And that's pretty much, I mean, I've got some villanelles, but that's pretty much it. So thank you very much for your attention, and I appreciate that.